What's up, everybody? It's Stephen A. Williams, president and founder of the creditrepairshop.com. I have a very good one for you today. Before I get started, I want to thank everyone for their prayers for my wife and that we, she's fighting hard and strong, and just I really appreciate everything from everybody. So, real quick, in today's video, we're going to talk about debt that's being released in the market. I'm just going to talk about one account, and then I'm going to move straight into something that I see debt collectors are trying to pull, but it is all about perception. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit about that perception that they put out there so you can know what you have to do to fight that perception, because perception is reality. If you think something is one way, even though it could be different, it could be false, it could be false fear, false evidence appearing real, you will move in that direction unless you practice at least what I'm going to tell you to do, what I taught myself to do, because these people are professionals at their job, and you have to be ready and have to like pull yourself down and go into a thought process before reacting. And that's very hard for a lot of people to do. So first, let's just start with Debt Collector had one that came out late last night, uh, saying that this is their tax deal, tax season special on $5 million worth of outstanding charged off debt from 2007 to 2009, 2,501 accounts, and they're selling it for pennies on the dollar. Average balance is $2,000. Um, Step number one, when you get that, go to my website, thecreditrepairshop.com, on my blog. Type in statute of limitations so you can see what the statute of limitations for collecting debt is in your state. There's only one state in the United States that has a 15-year statute of limitations on debt, and it is not even that long for this type of debt, which is credit card debt. Um, if it's past statute of limitations, you just simply send them a letter stating cease and desist the collection activities, not a cease and desist contacting you about the debt, cease and desist collection activity, and you notifying them that it is past statute of limitations to legally collect in your state. So that makes them stop contacting you about the debt, and also notifies them that the debt is past statute of limitations and that you know that it's past legal statute of limitations. If it's not past statute of limitations, you're going to do a debt validation, and to to make them prove that you have to pay that debt. And both of those letters are for free below here with the resources. Now, the debt validation, that goes into what we're going to be talking about today. Right here is a debt validation from debt collector. This debt collector practices in Alabama, California, District of Columbia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, and New York. They are collecting debts for debt for portfolio buyers, which this portfolio buyer was LVNV funding. And so, just to give you some history about this one, this customer was had gotten a complaint, but when we looked at it, it was actually a cause, not a full complaint that was filed. So basically, what this is they are preparing it, and they would just have to pay the fees to file it. But they sent that information to the customer, and he thought that it was a summons, to go to court. And we spoke with them, with the collection agency, because he does want to just try to pay a smaller amount just to settle the debt, make it go away. But during the communications with them, when we found out that it was not a court summons, and that they did not want to come to his agreement on the amount for the debt. uh, he chose to go ahead and just do the debt validation to them, and they submitted back to him and to us the um, debt validation. But now let me just talk to you about what they tried to do, attempted to do with this debt validation. And it's all about perception. Perception is reality. Perception becomes reality. That means that if someone can make you think a certain way, they can actually override your own information that you have inside of you about a certain subject. And if you don't have that information in your mind about that subject, or enough information to make you understand what is true about that subject, you could fall under their perception of what they're saying, and it can make you do something that you normally wouldn't do. So, in their debt validation, they stated that under the Fair Trade Commission stated in 15 USC 1692G Section B, is that a debt validation is is intended to assist the consumer when a debt collector inadvertently contacts the wrong consumer as at the start of collection efforts, which is the debt validation, the dunning letter that is sent out. Like this, these people here that are selling debt are going to send out what's called a dunning letter. This is gives you the opportunity when you receive that letter, you have to respond in 30 days if you want to dispute any part of the debt that is not yours, or that you want to dispute any part of the debt. Now, it also goes into the verification of debt involves nothing more than the debt collector confirming in writing that the amount being demanded is what the creditor is claiming is owed. The debt collector is not required to keep detailed files of the alleged debt. And then they uh, stated some cases where people had lost. And then it says here, uh, consistent with the legislative history, verification is only intended to eliminate the problem of debt collectors dunning the wrong person or attempting to collect debts which the consumer already paid. Then it went into the law, the cases that have went around that went in the debt collector's favor. Then there is no concainment, con, concomitant. Basically, they're saying that there's no obligation to forward copies of bills or other detailed evidence of the debt. So now, but now, if a person who gets this response from this debt collector, what they would believe is that the debt collector has no obligation to prove anything other than you're, just saying that, hey, we're going to just send you some stuff and this is yours. So what they even did just to prove that what they're saying is one thing and they're actually trying to build their case of proof on the other direction. So they sent statements from the original creditor with this response in the letter. If you didn't have to prove anything, why would you send this? They sent this because they want to build a perception. They want to stack on top of number one, a letter that they sent, and then they want to give you a reminder of all the bills that you had with that company. But let me tell you where there's a problem. Not to say that the individual in question would have to end up doing a settlement on this, but let me walk you through some problems. And I'm going to go to my catalog here. Um, and this is straight from the FTC. Section 809, validation of debts. Okay, now, and we're going to go to section 4, a statement that if the consumer notifies the debt collector in writing within 30-day period that the debt or any portion therefore is disputed, the debt collector will obtain verification of the debt or a copy of a judgment against the consumer, and a copy of such verification of judgment will be mailed to the consumer by the debt collector. And statements that, and this is section 5, statements that upon the consumer's written request within the 30-day period, the debt collector will provide the consumer with the name and addresses of original creditors, and if different from the current creditor. So that's section 4. Now, what the FTC is allowing with the debt validation, but what the way that you shift the burden back onto the debt collector, because what they've done is they've done a shift. They said, here, we're giving you this, and we're putting this stack of stuff showing your statements from the original creditor. Okay, now let's stack on what we're going to do, what we're going to ask of them, because they're stating that they don't have to provide it, but they do have to provide it, and they're trying to give a perception that they don't. Our client is stating that the amounts that are in question, which they did not provide in the debt validation, they just overlooked that, is that he wants to see all of the payments, the credits, everything that he had paid towards this so he can verify the amount that they're claiming. They just wanted to just really just jump over that. They didn't want to even bother with dealing with that. They just went into putting this letter together with some court cases that they obviously that have been won by other debt collectors, even though that there's other ones that they have lost. And then they put at the end that they would like to come to some amicable agreement because they know that there's still potential that they could lose. So now let's go to the next section here, section 812, furnishing deceptive forms, 812, in the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act with the FTC. Section 812, furnishing certain deceptive forms. It is unlawful to design, compel, and furnish any form. Knowing such form would be used to create the false belief in the consumer that a person other than the creditor of such consumer is participating in collection of or in a attempt to collect a debt such consumer alleged owed such creditor, when in fact such person is not so participating. And I always tell people to watch out for this. When you are being sued in court, you want to make sure that they are stating who is actually suing you, because they'll make it look like the original creditor is suing you when it is really the debt collector. So in this case, it is LVNV Funding is suing this client. They did not falsely place the original creditor on there. They did do that portion correct. But here is the issues that we have with that, and that's why if you have the wherewithal, you had a temperance from within inside of you to fight and to go back and forth, is that the um, the debt buyer that purchased the debt does not have knowledge of how the original creditor kept its records. So you still have an obligation as the debt buyer and as the debt collector that is representing the debt buyer to fulfill to provide certain information to the alleged debtor about the amounts that you're claiming that the debtor owes. They tried to do that with providing the statements, but there's a problem with these because they don't state payments. They're not stating payments. They have some on here where they're showing some payments, but this would not work as a complete accounting of what the client did. Now, not to say that a judge would not try to say, well, this is, they've done their part by showing statements, and the statements showed your payments that you had made. Some judges may let that go through, some of them may not, but for the for the for fighting, for pushing harder and trying to either come up with a better resolution for the customer, or uh, to outright get this dismissed in court, which is possible. Which is possible. You the next step would be to get them to provide more information than just the statements that they've provided. And so I'm going to have a consultation with the customer, and I'm going to ask him if he wants to move forward with that, to make another request of them. Uh, that he just simply does not agree with what the statements that they have provided here. He just does not agree fully with these. And you have a right under Section 809 of the Fair uh, uh, Debt Collection Practices Act, Section 809. I'll go back here. Section 809, that you have the legal right to dispute any amount of the debt that they're claiming that you owe. You had a legal right. When you dispute that, that puts them into uh, where they have to provide that documentation. Because if you say, I disputed, your only obligation is to say that you dispute the amount, and that you want them to provide the information from the original creditor showing. And if they cannot get that backup documentation, then they cannot fully prove. That's why they're trying to give a perception here that that they only have to verify that they're not coming after the wrong person, and that is not true. It states it right here in Section 809, validation of debts, that if the consumer disagrees with any amount of it, that you must provide. And if you can't get it from LVNV funding, and LVNV funding has to get it from the original creditor, and if the original creditor did not maintain the documentation to prove the amount that they're alleging, then this whole thing would not be valid. They would have to dismiss this case. But I admit that to get to that point, an individual is going to have to be willing to go to court and press this. So we're going to consult with our customer, and I've already spoken with him, so I know that he's the type that would just want to push. But if he wants to push, then the next thing is that to do a response to this letter here and state that we want them to prove more just than just statements, that his recollection shows that this amount that they're claiming is not right. Also, uh, just real quick, that when you're looking at these statements and you look at what they're attempting to try to collect, there's already discrepancies just looking at the balances of the amounts that they claim are due. There's problems even with the paperwork that they have submitted. And it is stating that the account summary has been prepared by Resurgent Capital on the behalf of LVNV. It is not a credit card or other account statements from the original creditor. So already with this, we can see that there is a huge problem with this. So there's a huge problem. So it says here on the other document that they submitted, and I had kind of missed this, but I always go back and review. It says that this account summary has been prepared by Resurgent Capital Services on the behalf of LVNV Funding. It is not a credit card or other account statement from the original creditor. So already there's a problem here. From their own documents from now the debt collector, he submitted, he or she submitted this, and they submitted this documentation, but they probably were hoping that no one would read. See, I got it highlighted, that no one would actually read that little part there. And when I get these papers, when I get these documents, I go through them and I comb through them first, and I just read them for what it is, and then I start to allow myself to kind of start absorbing it and start to look for the holes in this. So just to review, they sent a debt validation packet, all of these papers. They wanted to give a perception that they had no obligation to validate the debt with the amount or anything, and they wanted to get a perception by showing court cases of people that have lost against debt collectors, which there's probably always some sort of reasoning on that, on why they lost, because other people have won. They wanted to get a perception that a debt collection verification is only to assist that they're not going after the wrong person. And then that they wanted to give the perception that that they don't have to provide copies and statements and all of that stuff as evidence, but they submitted it. And when they submitted it, one of them at their office didn't read this because they said this is not actually prepared by the original creditor. So if you're coming after a debt, because not the debt collector is not a lender, Resurgence Capital is not a lender, LVNV Funding is not a lender, the original creditor is a lender, and you're providing documents that that were not prepared by the original creditor. So how is this customer supposed to know that the amounts that you're claiming in your cause, which will be made a court summons, is true? So there's problems with this. So I'm going to end the video here. If you need help with your credit, please visit thecreditrepairshop.com. Please watch the video, What Makes Us Different. If you can follow that, we would invite you to become a customer. If you can't follow that, please choose another company, because this stuff right here is what doesn't allow people to move forward, because at some point you could be where you have to make a decision on if you're going to take care of a debt collection. If you need the debt validation letter, that those resources are below. The cease and desist collection activities, because it's past statute of limitation, that letter is below here too, and there's some other resources below. If you don't have your credit reports, please go to the website that I have listed, the number 3scores.com. Get your credit reports and scores there. There's a lot of information when you get your reports from a paid credit monitoring service. There's information that you would have that the free monitoring services don't give you. All right, thank you. And until next time, this is Stephen A. Williams, President and founder of thecreditrepairshop.com. Thank you.